Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. We are going to hear from Heather Poole. She is a foster mom, and her story, how she selflessly loves these children, is so inspiring and such a good reminder of the proper perspective that we should have when we approach foster care and loving on these children. So, we really hope that today's episode is going to be enlightening, renewing, and so hopeful and helpful for you. Enjoy.
Hello. Today, Sam and I have the opportunity to speak with Heather Poole. And Heather is very unique in many different ways. So, Heather, before we get into all your uniqueness, let's talk about who you are.
Okay.
Okay, so if you can kind of introduce yourself to us, tell us a couple of highlights about you, your family,
Okay.
and what makes you unique. And then we would talk about just go a little bit further in what you're doing right now.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm a step, bio, foster, and adoptive mom. Lots of kids. Probably like a lot of your guests, but I have lots of kids across all ends of the spectrum. I've been married for 17 years.
That's
And
nice.
we have two stepkids for me that are our oldest two. I have two biological kids. We
Mhm.
adopted our daughter from foster care last January, and then we currently have two foster kiddos in our home. And we are really passionate about foster care,
Mhm.
adoption, kinship, connecting families together, and just the being ministers of reconciliation through what we get to do in our home and how we get to connect with other families and yeah, we love what we get to do.
Well, it just sounds like you've had a lot of practice with reconciliation because a mother with all those hats and making sure all the kids come together as one and you all are one family unit.
Yes.
And it sounds like you must be really good at it because it's going on 17 years plus, 17 years plus. So that's great to know. Now, let's talk about some of that connection that you spoke of. First of all, are you all here in the community?
Yes, we live in Ellis County,
Okay.
between Ferris and Ennis, little town Palmer. Most
Oh,
people don't know.
I haven't heard about Palmer in so long. I love my Palmer people. I had a teacher from Palmer, and
Okay.
she was just the sweetest
Yes.
person. So yes,
We love our little town. It's amazing. We've been there the whole time we've been married and don't
Oh,
have
that's
plans
awesome.
to move anywhere else. It's great.
That is awesome. Now, talking about connection, why is connection important, and what kind of connection are we talking about?
Um, Connection, I think, has become a really big theme for my husband and I over the past 6 years. And I think it's just every aspect of the word appeals to us because what we do in our homes, in our communities, in our churches, and most importantly, with our relationship with God, it's all about connection. And so, one of the ways that that has really showed up in our foster care journey has been through the connections God's allowed us to make with biological families. It wasn't something we like set out, 6-7 years ago to advocate fiercely for reunification and bio families, but it has become kind of a really big theme in what we see as our calling from God. And so we're huge fans of safe, appropriate reunification. We love having opportunities to connect with our kids' family of origin. We've had a lot of opportunities to do that in a lot of different ways. And so we've actually built a ministry out of the idea of connection, and we spend a lot of time just connecting families to resources. And so we are hoping to continue to extend that to reunifying families and helping them have the resources to, as they put their families back together. And so it's very important to us because we think it's important to God.
Okay. And Heather, I'm smiling, I'm cringing, I'm having goosebumps all over me because for so many, it's such an ironic statement to make. Let me start there because, and I know a lot of the foster parents, adoptive parents who are listening are like, wait a minute, that's the scary part of fostering. That's the scary part of connection. And some people do not go into fostering because, wait a minute, do I have to deal with the bio parent? Do I have to talk to the bio parent? What if they, come after me? This is a scary, situation and space to be in. And to hear you say, you're fostering the family, bio family connection and what that means, I just don't know, how to, if I was a first time foster parent or even considering it, how I would feel about that because is there a benefit to it? I guess is my question. And talk to us about that. What made you say, you know what, I'm going to be bold enough and I'm going to reach out to this bio parent?
Yeah.
And how do you do that? So let's just start with first, because I had so many questions in that one, and still have so many more. So I'm so eager to have this conversation with you. Is there a benefit to connecting adopted and foster parents with bio parents?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any way you can deny the benefits. I mean, just from the get-go, when everybody's on the same page with the team that is working for the best possible outcome for a child, it can be really easy as a foster parent, and even as an adoptive parent, to have a tendency to want to throw up roadblocks sometimes to protect our own hearts.
Right.
And so when we can step outside of those tendencies and recognize God's heart for families, the benefits are just so evident. Everybody's working together towards the same goal. You don't have the conflicts of interest kind of battling against one another. And your benefit as a parent, I've gone through the grief and loss of a child leaving my home that I didn't want them to leave. And it's given me a whole different perspective on how I can invest that time and that emotional energy in an outcome that is a good outcome. We think my home's the best, where they have so many opportunities here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's God's plan for that child or that it is the best outcome for that child. And so I've had to hold on to that really loosely and let it go at times. And I found in the cases where I was really able to get behind and be a cheerleader for families, and that was the end result, I couldn't even be sad in the end. When a child is going home to a bio parent and I get to celebrate with them and rejoice with that family, and we get to look at the restoration and the healing that happens, it's you can't be sad about that outcome at all.
Wow. Now, before we kind of talk about that, what reunification is, and actually the goal of fostering, let's get it straight now, because I know some people are saying, well, maybe that's because she has a lot of kids. It doesn't matter if a child come in and out of her house, or maybe because she's been fostering so long. So let's answer those questions first. How many years have you been fostering? Let's talk about that.
We just celebrated 6 years in March.
Okay.
So about 6.5 years.
So that's around many of us. So we can get that excuse out the way, or reason why she feels
We're not
way.
Veterans.
Okay, yep.
She
doesn't have that 40 plus. Okay, so she's still under that 10 with a lot of us. And how many stepchildren?
I have 2 stepchildren
And
2 bio, 1 adopted, and 2 fosters.
Okay, so that's clear to us again. Now we can get all that out of our mind and stop just saying, well, it's just her. Okay, because her story sounds like a lot of us. We can fit ourselves in there. Maybe we have some step, or maybe you have bio, maybe you have adopted, and at least you within that under 10 years of fostering or adoption. So now with all that being said, we all remember as we went through that pre-training, that the goal of fostering is to reunify the family. When a child is taken and put into child protective services, the goal would be for the child to be able to go back to the parent after training, after some skills, after making sure that they will be safe and cared for. All that out the way, that sounds nice, but I love this baby. And this baby's been placed with me for a reason, and we have to learn sometimes it's a season, and maybe just to get the parent the help, to get the child the help. And you said that you've had someone come and leave before.
Mhm.
So let's resonate with everyone about, yes, you do have feelings.
Yes.
Okay, so
I also get too attached, like we all do.
Right. And what helped you through that to understand that although I'm sad and hurting right now, I'm going to first of all take another child in and go through this all over again. And well, if God really loves me, well, how could he take this baby away from me and put them back in a situation that clearly they need to be out of?
Yeah. So we've had kids come and go, and we've had pretty much every outcome you can think of. I don't put it past the foster care system to throw us for a loop at any point. But I did have one particular kiddo that came in a few years ago, and everybody kind of walked in the door saying, he's not going home. He's not going back to home. And that should be a red flag now that I've done it for a while, that it's not going to go the way they say. And so I think my heart was really prepared from the jump that he was my child and he was supposed to be with me.
Yes.
And so as the case went along, it ended up changing, of course, and it ended up actually being very chaotic towards the end. We didn't know if he was going home, and then they did find somebody that there was a fictive kin connection, and it was kind of all over the map. And then when he actually did end up leaving, it ended up being much more abrupt than we thought, and I grieved very, very hard for a long time. I think what helped me through that again was connection. The first time that I actually got to meet the foster mom who would be adopting him, it gave me such a sense of peace that this was God's plan for him. And as much as I wanted to be God's plan for him, that wasn't the answer. And God made that clear over and over, that this is the plan I have for him, and it would be wrong of me to stand in the way of that plan.
Wow.
And so getting to meet that family that he was going to be moving to, and that was going to eventually adopt him, it changed everything for me. I mean, it didn't change the emotions and the tears right off the bat. I think I probably grieved for a good 6-8 months, where almost every day just crying for this child and the memories I had made with him. But building that connection with that family, and I actually just sent him a birthday card a couple of weeks ago. He's celebrating a big birthday, and so I've gotten to stay connected. And so my role changed in his life. It's much different than what I wanted at the time, but God has allowed me the privilege to still get to see him from a distance and see what he has for him, and to confirm that, yes, my plans are good. My plans are better than yours. And so, and if we would have adopted him, then who knows where our home would be right now, if we would be able to continue to provide the beds that we have and the room that we have for the next child that needs a safe, temporary, healing space. And so just trusting God, even when it's really hard, and forging those connections, even through your own grief and your own loss. That's the only way that I made it through.
I'm just in awe of your strength. and I guess now I can see why you say connection is the root word of everything, because you are connected with God and have that relationship with him. It seems like it makes it a little easier to understand your assignment as you connect with the children that he sends you, and know that they are being sent to you by him. Talk to us about, have you had a nasty, sticky situation that didn't go as well, and how did you get through that to still be at the point to say, oh, oop, that's a number I don't know, let me answer it, and then when you find out who's on the other end, you're like, oh yeah, I remember. Hey, how can you still get to that joyous point knowing that you've had some letdowns over here?
Yeah, we've definitely, like I said, every outcome is different. We've had parents that we were able to connect and build relationships and true friendships with, and kids went home and we were able to celebrate. We had some situations before where we didn't know if it was going to be safe. We didn't know if the kid was going to go back home and experience more trauma and more loss and end up right back in the system. And we did have one particular situation where we got a call just a few weeks after he went home, and it was really difficult because we were ready to take him back with open arms, and then even that changed again. And so we had to really, again, know our place and our role.
Right.
And a lot of times in those situations, our role is to just continue to cover that child in prayer and to cover that family in prayer and make sure that the family knows we're here for support. We're here if you need us, anything you need. If in this particular case, he had moved pretty far away, and so they weren't in our community and in our area anymore. But we spent time, working with the CASA worker who was still involved and working with the caseworker who we had a great relationship with, and helping make sure that they had everything that they need around them where they were. Right. And it ended up working out, and he's still with her and they're doing great. And I stalk them on Facebook every once in a while. And, it may not all be the exact story. He may have still hit some bumps in the road. He may still have experienced things that I wouldn't have wanted him to experience, even in that interim, as he went home and as he transitioned. But all of that is a part of his story. And I think that God uses all of that to refine him, and it refines us into the parents he wants us to be. And so our role is just to be willing and to be present and help where we're needed and get out of the way once God says get out of the way. And so it ends up being a story that I'm not sad to talk about it. I'm happy for him. I know he'll probably still have challenges throughout his life, but I trust that God is going to take care of him and protect him ultimately.
And you just keep him on the prayer list.
And that's God's job and not my job. I'm not God. I would be horrible.
Right. And that's becoming a consistent thing that we hear, right, Sam?
Yes, very.
We hear a lot that, just knowing our assignment as foster parents, and we can even take that into our lives as individuals, knowing what God tells us to do, and being able to kind of stay in our lane and let him handle the whole highway. Yes. Lord, I stay right here in this lane. We get in the slow lane. He can take all those other 3 fast lanes, and, just being okay with him doing that. And that's the struggle.
Yes. We want to control everything.
Yes.
And that was probably easily the hardest thing as we became foster parents, is letting go of what we don't get to control anymore. And you have to give up a lot of control when you become a foster parent. And I think that's the biggest lesson that God has taught me over the years is that he's in control. He's always been in control. I was never really in control.
Right.
Even before I was a foster parent. If I thought I was in control, I was fooling myself. He's in control.
Right. And it's good to hear the stories of the success stories, and then just the heartbreak, as well. Those are still good to hear because they give you to see how God is still working with you in spite of all those. And to give you the strength to keep going. How many children have you all fostered all together?
It's a little over 25, I think. Between 25 and 30. There is a few long-term respite that I count, even though they...
Do y'all have an age group, or are you fostering them in because they're all babies and can't talk?
No.
Okay.
Our age group was opened up to about middle school. Our bio kids in our home when we first started were 8 and 11, and so it's changed a little bit over the years. My son just graduated high school, so
congratulations.
And so I still have a couple of teenagers in the home, so it'll fluctuate as we go. We have always had a heart for teenagers. We've been in children's ministry and youth ministry for a long time, and so I think eventually we want to be more open to older kids. Right now we're kind of in the elementary age phase.
Okay, but they're walking. You have some walking and talking.
Yes.
Okay, so we just trying to make sure this is not just easy for you to sit here and say because we just rocking babies all day.
No, you guys, middle schoolers are where the challenge is.
Right. I agree with that statement. Now, let's talk about how we can make these connections. So let's start with fostering. Okay. If you have a foster child that come into your home, a lot of us here and we share, different stories of, as soon as you get your foster child and they're getting ready to go to a visitation, write a note to the parents, put that in the backpack, send it on. What are some successful connections, tools that you've used to connect?
Yeah, so I think probably one of the scariest things I've ever been asked to do, but it ended up being such a great opportunity, was to supervise visits.
Oh, wow.
So we had a sibling group a few years ago that came in, and it was very uncertain at the start, but it got better and everything was going the right way. And so we had the opportunity to allow the older sister to have a daily phone call with mom and dad. And I had never been asked to supervise something like that.
A daily?
Daily phone call.
And
I
all the
thought,
foster parents are like,
that's
what?
really inconvenient for me. And so I just kind of had to sit in the background. I said yes to it because I thought it was really important. She was at a really pivotal age, and it was really important for them to continue to maintain that connection during that difficult time in their life. And so we said yes to that. And it was really cool. I just stayed in the background. This was before I had officially met mom and dad.
Okay.
And just was there to kind of make sure it was appropriate and everything. And we never had any issues. And then a few months after that, this particular family had an amazing team. They had probably the best caseworker I've ever worked with, best CASA worker. And they advocated fiercely for this family to get to have more normal visits, not in a CPS office. And so they asked us if we would supervise in-person visits and just connect one-to-one with the family and
like
plan.
a restaurant.
We could go to McDonald's, we could go to the park, we could do whatever we wanted to. But it became this more organic experience for them. So they're not sitting in a CPS office with somebody staring at them through a window. They could just go to the playground with their kids. And so it was a little, like you mentioned, it was a little scary. You don't know, and all you know is what was in a case file when the child came to you, and some of the reasons why they were in care. And so it was definitely a little scary to say, okay, yes, we'll just kind of put ourselves into the middle of this. But we had the opportunity to supervise those visits. And I remember one of the first things that the older daughter said to me, it was probably one of the best things I've ever heard in 6 years. She said, I cannot wait for you to meet my mom because I think you guys are going to be best friends. And it really just kind of hit me like
you at a different level with mom.
She considered, our bond and that me and her mom, this is a child recognizing that me and her mom had a lot more in common than we didn't. And I don't know that I would have realized that on my own with my own, biases and, selfish things that I have going on. I don't know that I would have easily come to that conclusion, but to hear a child say that and to recognize we're both just moms and we actually have so much in common. Yes, our lives have taken different paths, but at the end of the day, I don't ever want to put myself in a different category as a mom. Like, this is a mom and she's doing everything she can. And so we actually got to meet the mom and the dad. We built an amazing relationship. It blossomed into a true friendship. And their story is my favorite one to tell because the older daughter actually, she came to know Jesus while she was in her home. She got baptized on Mother's Day, and mom came to know Jesus. Mom got baptized. They both got baptized on Mother's Day. We celebrated the whole day together, and it was really beautiful. And we've been able to stay in touch with them afterwards. But just by saying that first step of obedience, just saying yes to something that's, even though it was inconvenient to have to sit on a phone call every night. It was out of my comfort zone. Just being willing to do that. It really just helped that family get to where they needed to be, which was back together. So that's probably my favorite one to share about.
I love that. It just makes me just feel so good inside because I hear you say that connection alone. I mean, your obedience, first of all. And knowing was saying, you know what, well, it doesn't make me feel comfortable, but the child needs this. And you saying, okay, just so they can connect, then you all connected, and then they were able to connect with God through your connection.
And that's really the whole goal.
You letting them connect. Isn't that why we're here?
It's here. That's missionary work in your home, and you get to see that.
Exactly. For us to get to know God and to share God with other people and to see God move in their lives. And you're like, just because I said yes, Lord, just because I sat in the corner and let them talk, even though I didn't.
Look what he did with that.
And he just said, let me take it from here.
Yes.
Wow, that's a different connection. That is awesome. I mean, it's just so many ways that you can connect. So you
Mhm.
all connected through the phone.
Mhm.
Have you ever used because like I said, I hear about writing
Mhm.
letters. I've never unless they're getting ready to, be terminated, right? Getting terminated, then okay, we have the big last meeting or so forth.
Mhm.
But to be able to meet outside the home and it's just not a kinship.
Yeah.
Kinship, they'll do that all the time.
Mhm.
But a foster parent,
Yeah, I mean,
that's not kinship.
every case is so different, and
Yeah.
we've had several where we didn't have the privilege of meeting the parents face to face for
Mhm.
safety reasons or for whatever
Right.
reason, and it's not always the right move, and that's okay. And so I did have the little boy I spoke about earlier that I thought he was going to be with me forever. When he at some point in his time with us, he was able to start having visits with bio mom.
Mhm.
And I remember that first visit, I packed a bag for him and I packed a journal and I wrote mom a note and I sent some pictures. And I had to pray so hard over that bag and that journal because
Yes.
I did not want to share that with her. I didn't
Mhm.
want to connect. I
Mhm.
I was harboring a lot of anger that he was in the situation that he was in,
Mhm.
and I had to allow God to soften my heart and
Yes.
to be able to. And I did not get to meet her in person. We exchanged a few notes back and forth, and then his case eventually went to a kinship adoption.
Okay.
But that was it's a great tool, and I highly
Mhm.
recommend that anybody make an effort, really.
Right.
Just make an effort, and it might not always be received, it might not always be reciprocated. You might get a letter back in the journal that you're like, well, this is kind of rude.
Yes.
And so you just kind of have to take each of those things as they come and know, again, it goes back to the obedience. I'm doing what God has called me to do as a follower, and um, that this is bigger than me. And
Mhm.
those are the fruits of the spirit, right? The
Right.
fruits of the spirit. It's
Right.
not, we don't do that in our own
Mm-mm.
flesh. Like the fruits of the flesh are selfishness and bitterness and resentment
Right.
and greed, but the fruits of the spirit are love, joy, peace,
Mhm.
patience. And so that's what I want to put out there, and I get back what I get back.
That's great. That's great. I mean, just the word connection, we said we're going to talk about it. We tend to think about just the foster or adoptive parent or the kinship parent, but we fail to realize sometimes what the bio parent is going through.
Yeah.
Although we're scared, they're scared. They're very scared. And they're scared because they don't know where their children are. They don't know what type of home that child is in. It does, so it's a different type of fear that they may have. And some might want to connect. Some see us as the enemy because we're part of CPS that took them. And I know for me, a long time, my husband and I were called CPS. Oh, you all live with CPS? No, they don't live with CPS.
Regular
Right. We're people just like or we a lot of parents get blamed for taking their child away from them, and it's like I had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, and sometimes even by the child.
Yes, that's
kids
from child and the
and the
parent.
parents. Yeah, the kids
So-
even sometimes are confused about the dynamics, and we had a child that we were the enemy. It's funny how people love to talk, oh, I get so attached. I'm like, sometimes that kid does not want to attach
They
to
don't,
you.
because
They don't want
and
anything to
plus,
do with you.
their parent has told them also
Yes.
that they've taken me because that's what the child sees. That's the only thing they know is that when I was taken away from mom or dad or in my home, my normalcy, I got put in your home,
And you're
and
keeping
now
me.
you're keeping me.
Yeah.
So you're taking me away from mom. So it's when we talk about connection, it's the connection with the child and the connection with the family.
Yes.
And it's about your family because you already have a family that's in their home. Now someone else come in, so how do they connect with them? So we're talking about connections all around.
Yes, it is.
We can't avoid connection.
You can't avoid it, and if you try to hold on to different parts of it, it just won't work the way that it's intended to work. And so, we've seen it work really well, and probably learn as much from our mistakes and the ways that we don't do it that well. There's been some things that have worked for us, but I think we learn from both ends of the spectrum.
Right. We really need like a blueprint for connection.
Yes.
How do we connect? So just think about that, connecting. How would you tell us what would you know, where do we start with the connection? Do we make that huge connection to try to connect with the parent first in order to get to the child that might be difficult to connect to? Or as a parent, do I go to the child first? And then, I mean, what should I do if I'm struggling in my home to make a connection, first of all, with that bio family?
Uh-huh. I think back to our very first placement, and like I said at the beginning, we didn't set out to be foster parents to connect to biological. It was really not even a thought in our mind when we made the decision and went through licensing. But I remember the very first child that came into my home was an 11-year-old boy. And at the same time, my biological son was also 11. They were the same age.
Wow.
And so we said yes to this little boy, and he was from a county a couple hours away. And one of the first things I remember when I read through his Common App and his file was looking at his birthday and recognizing how close it was to my son's birthday. And that it hit me in that moment that me and his mom were probably pregnant at the same time. And I think that realization, especially thinking back to when I was pregnant with my first son and how difficult my life was at that time and how my story could have ended so much differently if I didn't have the support and the family and the people pushing me and praying for me and people walking through that with me. And I remember thinking about his mom constantly in those first few weeks and praying for her. And I think that was really, God was already laying the foundation and preparing my heart for what would become something that's very important to me, which is, first of all, just seeing them as a human being. It is really easy to read a file or a Common App or read, the reasons for removal and jump to all kinds of conclusions and make all kinds of assumptions. And so I think one of the best things you can do is from the get-go is believe the best about somebody to the fullest extent that you can, and not jump to all the conclusions and not place all those assumptions on them. They have enough challenges to overcome, and we pray that they overcome them. They don't always overcome them, unfortunately, but believing the best about them and seeing them as a human, seeing them as a mom and a dad. And it took me a couple more years to realize how much I had in common with each of these parents. But I never wanted to get to a place where my heart didn't break for another mom that was going through that. And I never wanted to not see them as a human being or as a person. And so I think that it starts with yourself, right? You want to connect to the child, you want to connect to the parent, but it starts with the internal thoughts and biases and work that you have to do to get to that place. And then everything else is just a product of how the case comes to you and allowing it to come to you and being open. You can't operate from a place of fear, but you do also have to have safeguards and boundaries in place. And so just carrying all that tension and holding it in the best balance that you can. It's the only way to do it, and just trusting God every step of the way.
I asked, thought to myself and said, okay, Lord, if I didn't have my support system, where would I be?
Yeah. What's the difference between
what is it?
My life and the trajectory that it took and hers? And a lot of times it's the connections that I have and that she doesn't maybe have access to. And so if you can get to a point where you can connect and you can be a part of her success story, I mean, that's incredible. God can use you to be the connection that she needed to be what other people were to you. And I thank God for the people that I had in my life, at that time when I became pregnant with my son. I could have very easily been a statistic. I could have very easily been in the same situation. And I don't ever want to take that lightly, the responsibility I have now to do good with how God has blessed me to continue, investing in other people's success stories.
That's true. And we do not see our family and friends as those connections, but they are.
Yeah.
Our support team, our village is our connection.
It's easy to take that for granted until you meet someone that has nobody. And I'm always shocked when they tell me, kids in my home, their bio parents, may or may not be able to reunify, but there's no other family. To me, that is such a foreign concept. There's nobody, and so I think that's where our roles as Christians, as churches, as communities, we have to come around these people. Nobody should have to walk these journeys alone.
just thinking about different ways that God has blessed, where do you see the biggest need? Because you've been in the community, you've talked to different foster parents, adopted parents, even bio parents to find out what is needed to connect the most, or what is the need at this point that maybe bio parents need from us as foster and adopted parent. We already talked about what we need. Okay, I just need them, do this, do that. But what do you feel that they need from us that we can easily just take care of to help this connection out?
I think authentic relationships is the number one
Oh,
thing,
that's
and I
good.
think
That's
that's
good.
something that I've seen a lot of parents and family members that I've had a chance to connect to. They're very wary of Christian communities. They're very wary of the church. They're not the people that are going to walk in on a Sunday morning and sit down and seek out a church community. And so sometimes being the hands and feet of Jesus and being the church, it doesn't look like dragging someone to a church building. It just looks like coming to them one-on-one and being an authentic friend, an authentic person in their life that truly cares about them, because they're interacting with all kinds of people across the system, and most of those people are checking boxes on paperwork, and they're not going to take the time to invest an authentic relationship with them. And so if you get that opportunity, just it's so worth it to do that and to be somebody that really cheers for them and roots for them. And then something that I heard recently, I think it was from our pastor, he was talking about how you don't always have the privilege to be the person that says what somebody needs to hear. You have to earn that right in someone's life to be. There's a lot of parents that they need to hear hard things. They need people to tell them, you can't do this anymore. You have to do this. But you have to earn the right to be somebody that speaks that into their life. And you earn that through connection and through relationship. There's a lot of things that I can say to my husband because we have a relationship, but I don't say it to other people. And it's the same with your friends. I mean, you have to earn the right to be that person in their life and to say the things that they need to hear. And so, yeah, I think community and authentic relationships are the best thing. It is a rescue mission that you have to go one by one. I mean, we can talk about how the system is broken and all these things, and it is, because it's a system. It's a flawed system with flawed people managing it. And so we have to be boots on the ground, and sometimes that's long and hard and it's not efficient, but it's the only way, I think, for lasting change in individual lives and hopefully individual families, and that they're able to pick up the pieces and go on and break those generational cycles, and so that we can climb ourselves out of the child welfare hole that we sometimes find ourselves in.
Thank you. Now, any last minute words you would like to say to foster parents that's struggling to make a connection, or even just trying to make a decision? Am I going to make a connection? You know?
I think for you as for all of us as foster parents, our connections within our own communities and the people that we're surrounding ourselves with can also make a huge difference. If you're not connected to a really great group of people, if you don't have a village around you that shares those values and is going to pray with you, pray for your kids, pray for your kids' parents, that's something you need. None of us are meant to do this alone. Our bio parents shouldn't have to do it alone. We shouldn't have to do it alone as foster parents. Ellis County is the best place to be a foster parent.
I agree with that.
I
agree with that.
There's so many wonderful people here.
Yes.
If you don't have a community of people to pray for you and lift you up on your journey, get that, because you can learn so much from your community.
Oh, I love that. I mean, you can even just send us a text, an email, whatever, to connect with us. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast, is so that we can connect, so you would know that you have this support here, because you cannot do it alone. Just like parents cannot parent alone, you can't be in this journey, in this field alone. This is a battlefield.
Yes.
And you need warriors, prayer warriors with you. You need people to stand alongside of you. You need people to hold you up when you can't stand. And that's where that prayer and that connection comes in as well. So please just take the time to connect. connect with our community, connect with our fostering nonprofits, our groups that's out there, fostering connections, connect with your agency, different foster parents, listen to the stories, because as you shared, one thing you truly said just now is that they have their story, but we have our stories as well.
Yes.
And it's not our up to us to share their story, but we must share our own stories of what we go through so that they can have a story one day.
Definitely.
Because they can't have a story and won't have a voice for themselves if we don't give it to them. So let's just come together so that we can do what we can as a community to build a community for them. So thank you, Heather, for being here.
Thank you
and
guys
talking
so
to
much. Any chance I get to talk about foster care, I'm here for it.
Awesome. Well, we enjoyed learning more about your family, the Poole family, what you all do in the community. Bless your home and may God continue to connect others with you all through your journey and for you all. So I do appreciate that. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you again for tuning in to today's episode. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions for future episodes, please feel free to reach out to us. You can also find the video versions of these episodes over on our channel at YouTube. So we have all of that information linked in the description. We'll see you again. Bye.